Greetings. Welcome to week 1 of MCM 614 Materials and Methods of Construction. Each week I will provide a brief introductory video lecture to just discuss what we're going to be covering this week. It'll be one of probably the most important ways for me to communicate a lot of information to you. So please do make this video, provided each week new, a priority first thing in the week. I will cover each week and discuss the module contents of Blackboard. So there are 4 different pieces that are going to make up Blackboard. The learning objectives for the week. We'll talk about the lecture videos that I'll be providing, the discussion board that we'll all be involved with, and any assignments or weekly quizzes. These are the 4 parts that make up Blackboard, and I'll review them all in this video each week. And then I'll preserve a place for any other important notes, things I have thought about, or amending some idea that I might have shared with previously. Here I noted always review end of chapter review questions in the Allen text. So just thinking about the little quizzes that will be coming each week and the midterm and the final, I am going to look to those end of chapter review questions for ideas. And just in general, I think they're a great gauge for what you should be absorbing and understanding. So I think you should, after you listen to my lecture and then scan through the text in the way that I described in the course intro video, I think you should understand the questions, the content of the questions. I think you should understand the terminology. Maybe not in great detail, but just generally know what broad area it's referring to. And you should be able to locate the answers in the text. So I think that would be a great gauge of keeping pace with understanding. The second bullet here points out assignments and discussion boards will only be available for 1 week on Blackboard. So again, in that introductory video, I pointed out that all of my lectures will remain available through the end of the term. However, I just want to amend that and say that the assignments and discussion boards, you only have 1 week to respond to. So after that, I take the assignment off and I take the discussion board down. So let's please be prompt in taking care of those matters. All right, moving on. So now I'm going to scroll through the next 4 slides and talk about these 4 bullets right here, starting with learning objectives. So we have course learning objectives, which I discussed pretty briefly in the course introduction video when going through the syllabus. Those are in bold here. Identify basic building materials, recognize how materials, number 3, number 4, and number 5. Each week we're going to have some learning objectives, and they should be aligned with the course learning objectives as best as possible. So I'm just going to use this format to help myself and help explain to you what's happening. So our first course learning outcome is to identify basic building materials and systems incorporated into houses and commercial buildings. So this week, what we're going to be doing, our first assignment, and I'm providing a whole video just on it, so I'm just going to briefly mention it here, is going to be a residential construction schedule. And what I think it should do for us is provide us a holistic view of all of the materials and the assemblies that we're going to be studying all semester. So just before delving into the details, I want to zoom out and just look at this sequence of events and get an appreciation for the complexity of it and how it all ties together, how the different pieces tie together. So it's going to be a very basic schedule I'm asking you to make. Nothing very complicated at all. And then I'm going to jump down here to the 4th course learning outcome, which is to evaluate the role of various building materials and how they serve a project's sustainability goals. So the 3rd lecture of this week will be on buildings and the environment, and it's going to introduce us to the basic impacts that our industry has on the environment. I'm sure you're all aware of them in general. I mean, how could you not be in this day and age of the environment? So we're just going to talk about the buildings, the process of making them, the process of running them, and the effect on the environment, and what we have done as an industry to keep ourselves informed and to implement smarter decisions, essentially. Excuse me. And then what doesn't fall neatly into any of these course learning outcomes are the other two presentations, which are coming up next. I'm going to jump right into that next slide. Here, I'm going to just describe the lectures and the videos that are available. So I just referred to buildings and the environment as the third one. And then these two don't really tie so neatly into our course learning outcomes, but nonetheless, the book begins with them and they're super important. So again, we're going to zoom out a little bit and we're going to see how design professionals function relative to everything we're going to be discussing all term, and then how the construction professional functions and relates to everything we're going to be talking about, and how these two work with each other, who does what during each phase of construction. Also, I think I've already referred to all of these videos elsewhere, but there's an instructor introduction, so a couple minutes all about myself and my background, my interest in buildings, my experience with them. There's an entire video just on the course introduction. This is very important. This covers the syllabus and a lot of broad information about the course. So this is a one-time deal. Just watch it this week, please. And then this is our first assignment. So I'm going to try to be very consistent in my naming of files, and because I know we're going to be working with numerous different file types, so I'm going to try to be very consistent. Again, it's just a residential construction schedule. So you're going to find that up on the Blackboard, a lecture and an Excel document for that. All right, moving on. Discussion board. So each week we're going to jump into the discussion board. In general, I would say that anything I ask you to talk about, I would say 3 to 6 sentences is reasonable. 1 or 2 sentences, a little on the brief side. Okay, I'm not going to count words, but you know, the amount of time and care that gets put into it, the amount of text that gets put into it, it's a clear reflection of your engagement with it. It's a percentage of your grade, so you know, I don't expect you to go on at length and in great detail about things, but please be engaged. All right, so this first week, what I'd like you to talk about, introduce yourself, tell about your related academic and professional experience, and anything else that you think is pertinent that we should know. But related to buildings, what have you done professionally? What other training do you have? Or are you new to it? Anything's great. What are your professional goals? Which direction are you heading with all of this? Then there are, so that's the big part, the introduction, the first half. So that's, you know, 10, 12 sentences, something like that, a paragraph really, less than 10. Then jumping into the third bullet, the extent of your experience with online courses. So I don't think I mentioned this before, but the extent of mine is I developed and taught one class a few times at Drexel's construction management master's program. And just in very brief, it was more engaging than I thought. It was a lot of years ago, so I didn't have as much experience as a teacher. So now, even though I haven't done it in so many years, and I'd still call myself new to it, my classroom experience is really bringing a lot to this, I know. So my experience has been limited, and I've never done it as a student. So please tell me briefly how much you've done, how many online classes you've taken, and what recommendations you have to me and your classmates just to make this better. You know, I'm all ears. So please, if you've been through it a lot, I'm sure you've come across some things that just worked and just helped to make it a better experience. So please share. And if you've never done it before, just say so. No big deal, of course. And then finally, any questions to date with all this housekeeping information, just throw them out onto the discussion board this week, and I will, if I don't address things, if I don't answer, and I probably won't, address things on the discussion board. If it's really for everybody, I think I'm going to bring it to this week, you know, next week's weekly intro, just like this. So it's just, I think it's just clearer for me to broadcast it to everybody this way rather than to bury important little nuggets in the discussion board where things could get buried for some. You know, hopefully it'll be lengthy, but if it's really important, I'm just going to save my answers probably for this format rather than the discussion board. Okay. And then finally here, I think this is finally, yes, this is assignments, the last piece of the puzzle for Blackboard. I already mentioned residential construction schedule. There's an entire video just on it where I run through 17 different steps along the way and I give you 30 weeks to build this house, starting with earthwork up here at the top left, finishing with landscape down here at the bottom right, and you're going to make this empty chart look something like this chart. Very simple. Don't overthink it, but give it the thought and the time that it deserves and needs. But again, it's a theoretical house. You have no information on it. I talk much more at length about it in the assignment, so I'm not going to say anything more about it. But hopefully, a useful small exercise to get us started. Excuse me. And finally, that front piece, that image on my first slide, just wanted to share, is from Brunelleschi's dome in Florence. An incredible structure. I do want to look at buildings throughout, old, new, famous, not famous. This is not really test worthy, but I just wanted to throw it out. You should take 5 or 10 minutes if you're not familiar and just jump into this Wikipedia article, read about Brunelleschi, and read a little bit about this dome that he committed his life to building. Incredible structure built without any false work or temporary centering. Would be constructed usually here, and then the masons would build the dome over it, and then they would remove the false work. That's how the Pantheon was built, with its beautiful coffered ceiling. This was built just with brick masonry and without having this part in particular collapse and fall in on itself. Was quite miraculous. And he invented the way that it was done, essentially. He invented many ways to do things on this project. And Leonardo da Vinci was an apprentice on this program, watching Brunelleschi construct the machinery and just the ingenious ways of building this monument. Fascinating building. So please take a look at that. All right. Looking forward to a great week and getting to know and work with all of you. Good luck. Talk to you soon.